Hello, NP Nation. We are about 400 kilometers from Ottawa. We've been in the car for maybe about an hour and a half. And we are very excited to be returning to our nation's capital for the opening of Parliament. Before we really get into it, we want to let everybody know that we are excited and we want to congratulate Marion from Northern Perspective. She's part of our team, and her husband David just welcomed a brand new baby boy into this world. His name is Shepherd, and both mommy and baby are doing very well. We're very excited to meet Shepherd and see Marion and David again, and we just want to wish our most heartfelt congratulations to this brand new family.
So welcome Shepherd into the family. I love the name. It's very appropriate given the time that we live in, and we're so excited to welcome him into Team Northern Perspective and NP Nation as a whole. But what we wanted to talk about today is something not unexpected but equally disturbing that has been going on in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination, which is the media coverage. Now, as to be expected, the American media has been all over this 100%, but we've also seen it in the Canadian media as well, and there's been just hit piece after hit piece on Charlie Kirk, which is completely unnecessary. And this is where the people that are in charge and have the authority to actually have these articles produced and published, this is where it all comes into focus as to why we're in this climate where political violence, especially against people on the right, is increasing at such a alarming rate. Because you have people that are vilifying people that are conservatives, not far right, but just conservatives, and they're vilifying them to such a degree that people that are not mentally well are taking it upon themselves as their patriotic duty, or whatever the way they're rationalizing this, to actually commit acts of political violence. And it's completely disgusting. And they're framing Charlie Kirk as far right. They're framing him as an extremist. They're framing him as somebody who is a misogynist, who's a racist, and it is completely false. And it's obvious that the people that are writing and producing these articles and hit pieces are either people that have never watched any of Charlie Kirk's discussions, or they've seen cherry-picked 10-second sound bites, or they have, and they're just exercising the agenda of the left in order to actually try and vilify this. Because one thing that has also been very evident since the assassination is Charlie Kirk's message is everywhere. Like, everyone is probably noticing his stuff appear on YouTube everywhere. In your suggested videos, in your upcoming videos. I've noticed it on mine. I've watched Charlie Kirk here and there throughout the years and enjoyed some of his discussions, disagreed with some of his stances on some of the policies, but that's to be expected. As we've said, you're not going to agree with somebody most of the time.
Well, the interesting thing is, on the way up here, I had seen, again, pop up on Facebook, one of the videos that he did. He was talking to a young lady about the topic of abortion, and she was making the argument that women should be able to ask for an abortion in instances where the origin of the child was non-consensual, we'll put it that way for you too. And he had made the argument that, well, look around you, maybe somebody around you was conceived in that manner. Maybe somebody around you was conceived in a loving marriage. Maybe somebody around you was conceived through violence and abuse. We have no idea. They still deserve human rights. And I thought that was a very, very interesting take on it. I don't necessarily agree with it, not off the hop anyways, but it's something that you can take away and think about. And I think that's what his whole thing was. Like, I'm going to give you some information and you go think about it. Maybe you change your mind down the line, maybe you don't, but at least you have that different point of view.
Yeah, his aim was conversation. It wasn't necessarily winning, it was conversation. So when you have these media conglomerates that are trying to frame it in such a certain way, it is very apparent that this is agenda driven. And a lot of people are going to say, of course it has been. there's a lot of people that don't see this, and this is why we have to point it out. So you have all of this support that has been swelling around Charlie Kirk. You're having vigils, you're having rallies, you're having positive events. And Konstantin Kisin said something on Piers Morgan just the other day in relation to this, and I thought it was very, very aptly put. He said that one of his biggest mentors when it came to what he was doing had told him that the most important thing to be paying attention to in situations like this is not what is being talked about or not what is happening, but what isn't being talked about and what isn't happening. So there's a negative space. And what he pointed out is what is not happening after this, especially when you compare it to the George Floyd issue. You are not seeing riots, you're not seeing police officers being assaulted, you're not seeing people on the left being assaulted, you're not seeing people on the left being completely vilified and called extremists and all of this stuff. You're not seeing any of that. You're seeing people coming together, people trying to grieve, and people trying to pick up the pieces and move forward.
I'll tell you what I am seeing, though, is people on the left who are making just abhorrent comments about Mr. Kirk and his family, how he deserved this, or they hope so-and-so is next. Those people are actually being called out, and rightfully so, because A, you should not be celebrating the death of anybody, and B, you should not be wishing death or bodily harm upon anybody else. And I think we're getting to a part, like in society, where we see these people behaving in this manner, and we're saying, you know what, that's not acceptable.
Right, because even in the United States, where free speech, you can argue, is given the biggest latitude, violence and advocating violence is not protected speech.
And it's never okay.
Right. And, you know, there might even be some people out there, I don't know, but there might even be some people on the right that are calling to violence as a result of what happened to Charlie Kirk. But here's the thing. That wasn't Charlie Kirk's message. Charlie Kirk has been quoted, and no doubt this clip of this video is going to be going around the world millions of times, where he says, listen, conversation is essential. If we can't have conversation from the left and the right, if we can't come together and have a dialogue, then what will inevitably happen is that leads to violence. And I don't want violence. I want to have a conversation, because if you can't have a conversation, how can you have any sort of amicable relationship when it comes to the different factions of the political spectrum? And this is what is necessary. We all have friends and family that are on opposite sides or different sides of the political spectrum. It doesn't mean that we hate them. It may mean we disagree with them, but it shouldn't mean that we cannot talk to them.
Right. We love our family members and our friends anyways. Yes, they may have different beliefs than us, but they're still cherished. We still love them. We still care for them. And I think that as a society is the way that we need to come together and realize, you know what, it's not an us versus them, but we need to try to find some common ground.
But this is where I come back to the media and even the politicians that are trying to frame conservative politics the world over as a, what's the quote, existential threat to democracy.
We're the ones that are fighting for democracy and more rights.
This is what has been talked about, and even leading up to the 2025 election, you heard this from the Liberal politicians in Canada, where they were talking about the fact that, you know, far-right politics is on the rise in the world, and we must resist that because that's an existential threat to democracy. And did they come out and say Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives were that existential threat? Not particularly, but the implication is there. They didn't qualify it and say, we're not talking about Canadian Conservatives. They left that wide open for people to interpret because they wanted you to fill in the blanks. And this is where the media is culpable. And the media, to quote Konstantin Kisin on this, they have blood on their hands. Because when you are trying to frame to society that people that think like a conservative or have conservative views or support conservatives are an existential threat, or they're Nazis or fascists or whatever extreme term you want to ascribe to them, some of these deranged people are going to say, that's my duty to eliminate them. Because you're essentially trying to stir up visions of Nazi Germany in 1939 to 1945.
Right, and if I don't stop these people, what are they going to do?
Right, they're going to take over society.
They're going to kill people. They're going to do this or that.
So this is the issue, and the mainstream media, like, absolute shame on you, especially these articles that have come out after Charlie Kirk, because they see that this is getting a lot of traction now. And the people that are pushing this agenda, they are very worried about the implications of people actually sitting down and having conversations and seeing that, you know what, people on the right aren't fascists, they're not neo-Nazis, and they're not extreme. And even if they have some views that you find extreme, that doesn't mean that you throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's the whole point of discussion, is that you're going to find things that you agree with somebody, you're going to find things that you don't agree with somebody, and you can agree to disagree. So this is where we are completely disgusted with the Canadian media, because they are not producing these articles and saying, listen, this is what Charlie Kirk intended, this is what he seemed to fight for, this is what he said. But they are drawing conclusions, throwing it in these headlines, and they're trying to disgrace the work that he did. And the other point that I heard over the last couple of days, which is very important, is Charlie Kirk is not a politician.
No, he's not. He's doing what we do, which is talking to the populace about social issues, about government issues.
Right, and he's going out and he's sitting down. We've heard the narrative, well, you know, he's going out and attacking students. Well, the last I checked, when you go out to a university and you sit down at a desk and wait for people to come and talk to you, that doesn't sound like attacking students to me. He allows anybody to come ahead. And if the crowd that actually supports Charlie Kirk tries to shout down these people, Charlie will tell them to be quiet. He will defend that person's right to actually ask the question, because he wants that dialogue.
Well, and that's just it. We can't have dialogue if one side is always shouting over the other, or vice versa.
So this is the importance of highlighting that after Charlie Kirk's death, what we're not seeing is riots, what we're not seeing is violence, and we need to keep it that way, folks. We need to show that this is the appropriate way to respond to this. And I had posted something on X the other day, where the response to this type of situation of political violence is not more violence. It's to make the original dialogue and message so deafening that people that would commit that violence would see it as futile.
Well, and to borrow a quote from V for Vendetta, ideas are bulletproof.
Right.
Unfortunately, Mr. Kirk lost his life, but his ideas and his legacy will live on.
So those are our thoughts on that. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we're going to continue our journey to Ottawa, and we will see you hopefully next time at our nation's capital. So take care, everybody, and Parliament is almost here.
And don't forget, we will not have a live stream tonight, which is Sunday. We will be having it tomorrow night, Monday night. We're not quite sure the time yet, so make sure you pay attention to our socials. Thank you.
Take care.